Hi everyone, Helen Blunden. Hope you're happy, healthy and well. It is time for a new book review, and this time round it is, no, not three. I'm going to actually be reviewing Cannery by John Steinbeck. Now, I'm showing you these three books simply because I read these in the last week, and you might be asking, do you have a way of reading? Like, do you have a list of books, or is there a theme that you read at a particular time? No, I don't. The way I read books, I kind of let books come into my life, and then I try and find a theme that I can resonate with at the time in my life. And sometimes it's really surprising because I find I accidentally read books that are really pertinent and resonate for that time in my life. And surprisingly, I've been reading books recently that all link to big themes happening at this point in time in my life, where I'm actually taking stock of my life and making some really big changes to go on a completely different tangent. The three books that I've read recently, and there is another one which I won't do a review on, by Mitch Albom, called Strangers on a Boat, which is excellent. But there is also Sue Townsend, The Woman Who Went to Bed for a Year, which I'll review at some later stage, and also The Latecomer by Dimitri Verhulst. But the one I wanted to really talk about today is Cannery by John Steinbeck. Now, I have read John Steinbeck before, but I haven't read, obviously, all of his books. The last two I've read were Grapes of Wrath, which was a high school book, which I loved, but also Of Mice and Men, which was I read it in the last couple of years, which was brilliant, of course. I love Steinbeck's writing. It's just beautiful. It's quite evocative and it's quite deep, but I just also love the characters. And this book was no different. This book was written in 1945, and it was, I didn't know what it was going to be about. I looked up on YouTube. I did a bit of a YouTube search and searched up Cannery, and there is a walking tour of Monterey, California, of Cannery, of what it looks like nowadays. But part of me wanted to see or go back in time to see how it would have been in Steinbeck's time, and it would have been a lot different. It would have been a place, I guess, of the workers of the canneries, where the fishing trawlers would go out and bring back tuna and sardines, and they would put them in the cans. It was a tough life of people working in the canneries. So you can imagine the types of people who lived in this town in Monterey. And the beautiful scenes that he evokes of all the bird life and the sea creatures and the animals and the humans, the people all working and living there all as one, was quite beautiful. There's not much of a storyline here. I guess the story is about the people living in this town, in particular one central character who the people all love, and that's Doc, who is a marine biologist, and he's one of these people who's got his head screwed on right. He's one of these people that everyone seems to love. He loves everyone back equally, and he has a lot of time for them. I'm sure that you have someone in your life who's like a Doc character, someone who you know, like, and trust, will always be there and will always be the voice of reason. Regardless of all the shit going on in your life, they'll be the one who is the steady person. So that's Doc. And as I was reading about John Steinbeck, because I must admit I don't know much about him, he based Doc's character out of his good mate in real life, Elliot, Ed Ricketts. Ed Ricketts, and who was also a marine biologist. So Cannery is about the different types of people in this town, and we get to love them for all their flaws and for all the things that they were just, I guess, so desperate to do for Doc. Their heart was in the right place. But there were times where I was reading this book, and I don't know if it's an indication of the types of books that I've been reading, or I don't know if it's an indication of the type of world that we're living in now, that I was expecting those stories to go towards the sinister. I was expecting those stories to veer towards the ominous, to head into evil, bad territory that we know so well and that we read and that we watch every single day of our lives through YouTube or video or books, that somehow humans can veer towards evil and badness. But you know, it didn't. The book actually always kind of surprised me. The characters then actually did nice things. They turned for the better, if that makes sense. And I think you have to kind of read the book to understand what it is that I'm talking about. So what had happened was the book itself, it split up into different chapters. Now, in between the stories of the characters of this town, in between chapters were really short vignettes of other characters who don't play major roles in this book. These were other characters who just kind of pop into the book that we get to see, and some of them actually turn quite twisted. And I must admit, as I was reading them, they kind of shocked me. And an example was where Doc actually finds a body of a young girl in a pond. So he stumbles upon a dead girl, and in these are kind of, you think, oh my God, where did that come from? Is he going to explore that? Is he going to tell the police about that? What's going to happen? And yet it's not discounted. It's then moved. Then the story just kind of evolves. Another one that kind of shocked me was one character who had a ghostly encounter, or so he thought, of he thought he saw a ghost of a young man slit the wrists of a young child. And so these kind of little shocks through the story didn't go anywhere, and yet we'd go back into the main theme of the book and it would carry us along. One of the other, as I was reading this book, there was a character by the name of Mac, and he headed up a group of young youths, young men. And, you know, in real life, you'd think when you'd get young men together and you'd throw alcohol in the mix, it would be a time where you would try and escape. Do not be anywhere around young men with alcohol in the mix, because something always goes awry. And sure enough, something always goes awry. But what they're doing in here is they've got their heart in the right place, because they're actually doing something for Doc. And an example was they want to throw a party for Doc. They want to do something. And yet something always goes wrong. Something at the last minute always goes wrong. And usually what happens is they smash up the place, and yet Doc seems to still forgive them. There are a couple of, I guess, mentions of parties. And I thought to myself, you know, they love a good party. All these people love a good party, and yet the party then goes awry. And I thought to myself, maybe the party is a metaphor for life. No matter how much you want to plan a good party, if you want to plan your life, something always will go awry. So what I got out of this book is the fact that the party is a metaphor for life, and that the elements and the people in this book, no matter how much they want to plan for it and do good by it, that in life there's always going to be some kind of evil, some kind of badness about it, but life goes on. The other thing I liked about this book is the fact that it's got humans, it's got sea creatures, and it's got animals all as one. Oh, and bird life, lots of bird life. And you're reading about the bird life and the sea creatures from their points of view. And even for them, life goes on. The very last chapter as well, about a beaver in a hole. It's about him the beaver trying to find a mate, and no mate coming to him. And yet he has to move his hole up to a higher mountain where he has to fight another beaver, and then so, do you get my drift? That it's kind of life. I was reading about life. In life, there is positive and negative. There is good, there is bad. There is evil, there is good. There is humans, there are animals, there is sea creatures, there are bird life, and yet we are one. Life goes on. But I did like how the theme, although I was expecting it to veer towards the ominous and evil, and maybe that's just a testimony of just the stuff that I've been reading or my state of mind. No, Steinbeck actually turns it out for the positive, for the wonder, for the awe, for the beauty that life is. I've marked a couple of places in this book because one of the things I really liked on page 131, where Doc is speaking to Mac, and he says, the things we admire in men, kindness and generosity, openness, honesty, understanding and feeling, are the concomitants of failure in our system. And those traits we detest, sharpness, greed, acquisitiveness, meanness, egotism and self-interest, are the traits of success. And while men admire the quality of the first, they love the produce of the second. And I thought that paragraph for me really hit home at this particular point in time in my life, where I do feel as if I want to actually extricate myself from a lot of the bad things that I'm seeing around the world, and yet I can't because it is part of the world. And so that I should think positively regardless. I should think like Doc in this book, that it is what it is, that life is life. Accept it for what it is. I can't go away and pretend that I can escape from my world like what this person did in The Latecomer, or like this character did in Sue Townsend's book, The Woman Who Went to Bed for a Year. I've just got to accept it. This is what life is about. And this is what Steinbeck was trying to tell me what to do. So that is my review. This is what I've learned from this wonderful book. I highly, highly recommend it. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Now I'm going to do the review of these two books. Okay then, bye from me. Bye.